Hey, gorgeous souls, it's Vix, and I'm here with a book haul. This is a very much an ethical book haul. These are all secondhand spiritual books that have recently come into my life. Here in Australia, where I live in Australia anyway, we have these book fairs that are usually run by the community or a charity that is local in the community. And what happens is everybody goes down and donates their books. And then they set them all out on these tables, and you go into this room, and it's just like tables and tables full of books. And you can just grab as many as you want, and they're all like $1 each. Some of the like bigger books are like $2 each, but it's really amazing. I always find so many gems whenever I go along to those book fairs. I don't know if you have something like that where you are, but even if you don't, like, I highly recommend checking out secondhand spiritual books. You can find some real gems. I'm an author, so I'm all for writing more books, getting more books into the world. I'm also an author mentor. So if you're somebody who is trying to get your book out into the world and you need some support with that, or your deck, if you have an oracle or a tarot deck, I can support you with that. I'm the author of 3 spiritual books, 2 with HarperCollins, 1 with Rockpool, and 3 oracle decks. And I've also self-published a bunch of young adult fiction as well. So if you want some support on how to do that, check out the link below. But as much as I'm here to help you make your dreams come true and get more and more books and decks out into the world, because in my humble opinion, there can never be enough, I am also just so in love with old books. Old books are just like my jam. I love secondhand books. I love some of the old school spiritual stuff. You know, like there's a lot of stuff that we see on social media these days. It's like, you know, what's trending, what's new. But if you go and like have a little bit of a deep dive into the book section at your local charity shop, thrift shop, op shop, secondhand bookshop, whatever, you can find some really amazing things that like you've never heard of before. And there's a few things in here that I'd never heard of before, so I'm really excited to share this haul with you. I just thought this would be a bit of fun, and maybe you'll get inspired by this. You'll be like, oh, I need to read that book. If you have read any of these, because I have not read any of these yet, please let me know in the comments. Let me know what I should read. Let me know if there's anything in this pile that you're like, nah, Vix, I read it, don't bother. I would love, love, love to hear from you. So let's begin. It's quite a stack. So we're going to be here for hopefully not too long. I'll try to get to the point, make this fairly succinct. Okay, so these are in no particular order, but the first book that I picked up when I went in there, and when you go in there, right, it's like everybody in the whole town is there. So you can barely get moved, and it's just like mountains of books on tables. So you've got to be like really quick, and you got to like, if you see something interesting, you got to just grab it, because otherwise, you know, someone else will grab it, or they'll just get in your way and you won't be able to get to the book. So as soon as I saw a Dion Fortune book, I was like, oh yes, please, because I have never read Dion Fortune, and some of you will be probably shocked and horrified about that. But I've got him on my my to read list. I've got a couple on my audio list of books to listen to, but yeah, I thought maybe I'd start with the Cosmic Doctrine, because why not? The revelations contained in this book are designed to induce in the occult student a deeper understanding of cosmic law, and should lead to a significant expansion of consciousness and a considerable increase of esoteric knowledge. I am, quite frankly, very much here for that. So as soon as I saw this, I grabbed it, read a little bit of the back, and I was like, yep, that's going in my bag. I went with my mom, and my mom takes this like trolley, like one of those like old lady shopping trolleys, and she's just like getting books and throwing them in. And she's like, what'd you get? And so I throw my books into the trolley. Okay, so the next one is Wishcraft, How to Get What You Really Want by Barbara Sher with Annie Gottlieb. So this is very much about manifesting. I have recently released a book on manifesting called Manifest Your Dreams with HarperCollins. That's out now if you'd like to check that out. But I am a very firm believer that we are always learning and we never have it all figured out. And I think anybody that tells you that they are like the ultimate expert in a field and they have nothing left to learn is kidding themselves and kidding you, quite frankly. We are always going to be learning. There's always something new to learn about manifesting, spirituality, all of the spiritual topics that we're interested in. So when I saw that, I was like, yeah, let's see what Barbara Sher has to say about manifesting. I had a little bit of a flick through, and it did look really interesting. You know, there was some stuff in here that I thought was like, you know, different ways to see things. She's got all these really cool diagrams. Like I said, I haven't read this yet, so I don't totally know what's going on in these diagrams, but you know, I'll keep you posted. I'll let you know. So another Barbara Sher book that I found while I was there is Live the Life You Love and Stop Just Getting By. Start getting the most out of your work, your goals, and your life. So I don't think that I'm just getting by in my life. I feel like I'm living a pretty good life, honestly. But I was still really drawn to this book. I really loved the kind of jokey, quirky kind of title, and yeah, I was like, sure, why not? Let's check this out. I actually went into a little bit of a rabbit hole with Barbara Sher after I came home with all of these books. I was like, who is Barbara Sher? So I had a bit of a Google. She actually passed away quite recently, but she's written loads of books, and she has like there's a whole bunch of her courses and content and stuff online. So if you're interested in finding out more about her, it looks really interesting. She looks like she was just like a really amazing woman who just, you know, she lived, she walked the talk, you know, like she really just got her work out into the world, and she made cool stuff happen. So and helped a lot of other people in the process. So the next book is Radical Acceptance, Embracing Your Life with the Heart of a Buddha by Tara Brach. So if you are interested in Buddhism, you may have come across Tara Brach. She's very well known in like the modern Buddhist kind of circles. I have been exploring Buddhism a little bit over the last 2 years. I've read quite a few books. I think I have actually listened to a couple of hers on audiobook. We have this really beautiful bush track that's just kind of down the road from where I live, and I go there most days and listen to audiobooks, which is a great way to read more books while you're out in nature. Sometimes I turn it off and just, you know, be, but I love learning and I love reading, so it's fantastic for me. But yeah, I did go on like a bit of an adventure with like just reading a bunch or listening to a bunch of books about Buddhism. Anyway, I found this one and I just thought that sounds really beautiful and interesting too. You know, we've got all the manifesting books that will teach you how to go for it, how to make it happen. But then I also really believe that we need this other side of it too. And I talked in my manifesting book about this as well, about how, you know, it's not all just about pushing and making things happen. Sometimes we just have to, you know, accept where we are and work with what we've got. So yeah, I'm excited about that one. Okay, so now we're getting into like some of the weirder books that I'm like, I have never heard of this stuff before. So if you've heard of it, I would love to know. So What We May Be, The Visions and Techniques of Psychosythesis by Piero Ferrucci. I have no idea what this is, but I was just really interested in it. The back says psychosythesis is a comprehensive approach to self-realization first formulated by the late Italian psychiatrist Roberto Assagioli. In this important book, Piero Ferrucci, a former student and collaborator of Ascioli outlines a specific program of easy to perform exercises that form the basis of a total system for psychological and spiritual growth. So I was all for that. I really apologize for the pronunciation of all of those Italian names, but that sounds really interesting to me. I've never heard of this. I would love to hear from you if this is something that you have discovered on your own journey. And this is the kind of stuff like I'm talking about, you know, like you go to these secondhand fairs or bookshops or whatever, and you find these weird things. It's like, what is this? I've never heard of this, but you know, there can be like some amazing stuff in there. It's something totally different than what everybody's talking about on TikTok, right? Okay. Learning to be Psychic by Lola. Now, this book looks like it has seen some better days. It's not in super good shape. It says it's printed by GW Print in Brendale, Queensland, Australia. It kind of has the vibe of being self-published. The date on it is 2004. Some of the pages are a little bit stuck together. But when I picked this up, I was just kind of like, this is cute. Like, there's some really kind of interesting stuff in here. It's kind of a story, like she shares her story of, you know, like how she became psychic essentially. But I was just like, this is different. Yeah, and then there's chapters like Lost Souls, there's chapters on spirit guides, there's like a whole section on healing. I just thought it looked natural remedies, dreams, understanding auras. I was just like, who is this person? I want to know more about it. So yeah, I just was drawn to that, even though, you know, it looks like it's been in someone's garage for like 25 years collecting dust. I was like, let's see what that's about. Okay. Living in a Mindful Universe, a neurosurgeon's journey into the heart of consciousness. Now, I have actually heard about this book before, and this is one of the cool things that happens too when you go secondhand book shopping is you find books that you're like, oh yeah, I remember hearing about that at some point. So basically, it's about a neurosurgeon, Dr. Eben Alexander, who experienced a near-death experience and came back changed. And I'm like, I'm here for that stuff. Like, I'm totally here for that. I'm pretty sure this was quite a big book when it first came out. I'm just going to have a look at the date on it. 2017. So it's not like that old. But yeah, I do remember hearing about it. And so, yeah, that's on my list now of like books to read. I'm actually kind of thinking this might be a good one to listen to as an audio, partly because it's like so long. But also because it's, you know, somebody's story, and I find those are really nice to listen to on audio. So I might try and see if I can get an audio version of that. But if I can't, I have the physical book now. So let me know if you've read that one. Okay, then I found the Book of Runes. This is super cute. This is just like a really old, let's see how old it is. Might not even be that old. It might just look old. I used to be really, really into runes. Some of you won't know this. What's the date on it? So this was printed in 1988. So yeah, it's pretty old. My very first experience with divination, apart from divination methods that I created myself, which I can tell you about, teach you about at some point, runes was like my first experience with divination. So before I had an oracle deck, before I had a tarot deck or anything like that, I had runes. And I was really into them, but I could never figure out like what they were about. Like I was always just had to go to the book to get the answers. Like I never kind of had like a bond where I could start to understand the symbols and kind of read them without just pulling them out of the bag and going to the book. Anyway, unfortunately, I don't have those runes anymore, and that's like a whole long story about why I don't have those anymore. But yeah, when I saw this, I was kind of like, oh, maybe the runes are like calling me again, you know, like maybe it's time to kind of go back to the runes and see what they have to share with me. So this book is basically just It just goes through like how to use runes and like rune meanings and stuff like that. So one thing I did actually do with this book, because I don't have a set of runes, is that I was just kind of using it as like a doing like bibliomancy, and I was just kind of like flicking to a page. Bacana, growth, rebirth, a birch tree. So I was doing that to get a little message, and that worked really well actually. So if you end up with a book like that, or even like a tarot book or an oracle book or anything, but you don't have the deck and you just have the book, just flip to a page and get your message that way. Okay, I thought this was really interesting too. Meditation Workbook by Greer, Allica. The Practical Guide to Doing It Your Way. So this was another one that I found that was like, okay, I've never heard of this author before. But when I looked through this book, there was like all of these really cool kind of like diagrams about, you know, like the body and emotional release, the heavy body technique, all of this stuff that's like, I don't know that I've like heard of any of this. But yeah, I just, you know, this is interesting. You've got like some movement in here, and it feels very like Kundalini yoga. But yeah, I just thought it looked really cool, and you know, I loved the way that it was kind of set out. You know, like all these different sections, lots of pictures. It just, yeah, it's just like, this is cool. So let me have a look at when this was published. It was published in 1990 is the date in it. It looks a little bit more modern than that, but that's interesting. And it was published by, who was it published by? David Lovell Publishing. So it's obviously like a small Australian publisher who published it like ages ago. So another one of these books has probably been sitting on someone's shelf or in a box for 20 years, and it's now here. So yeah, I thought there was going to be some like interesting stuff in there to help me with my own meditation practice. The Story of Edgar Cayce. There is a River by Thomas Sugrue. Edgar Cayce's remarkable prophecies and the medical cures he prescribed while in trance, told by the only writer who knew and investigated him while he lived. I just like love this stuff. Like I really love this stuff. I have a whole bunch of books, Edgar Cayce books. Some of them I've read, some of them I haven't yet. The only thing that I don't love about these books is just how small the font is. Like it is so small. I will really, really struggle with that. But it still looks really, really interesting. Interesting. I just want to say, like, you know, as much as I'm curious to know how he's like diagnosing illnesses and outlining medical treatments that he's never heard of, I'm a believer that, you know, we should go to the doctor if something's up. But hey, let's see what Edgar Cayce has to say anyway. Okay, The Richest Man in Babylon. So this is one of those books, and this looks old. Like this looks like a really old copy. This is one of those books that's like, I think like one of those old school kind of like businessy money kind of books. In the vein of, I'm trying to think of who, this is from 1955. This is pretty old. I'm trying to think of some of those other books. There's that one about, I can't remember it. Well, I know there's these books like How to Win Friends and Influence People, and there's that one about money, and I can't think of the name of it right now. But this is one of those books that like you see on lists of like, you know, must read books for financial success or whatever. So I was like, okay, I'll pick it up and read it. A lot of these books are kind of, oh my gosh, what is that one that I read recently? I got to remember the name of it and put it in the comments. these are like old school, right? Like they're really old school. Like a lot of the language that's used is probably going to annoy you. It's probably going to annoy me. It tends to be, these books tend to be very focused on like men, because women weren't running their own businesses back in the day, even though, you know, some were, but I guess it wasn't like the norm as much as it is now. Not that that, like, you know, excuses it, but anyway, it was a different time. So, you know, some of that stuff annoys me, and there's some stuff in some of these like old school prosperity books that does come across as like it's very privileged, you know, like it comes from a place of like these people are teaching about money, but most of them have had money all their lives, you know. So there are some things that I'm like, just gonna like prepare myself for that. It doesn't mean that there's not like good stuff in these books as well. Think and Grow Rich. That's the other one that I was thinking of. Think and Grow Rich. Same kind of vibe, you know, like it's very old school, and it really annoyed me like a lot of the time. But I appreciate there's some like useful stuff in there as well. Okay, we're nearly done. Herbs for Health and Beauty, fully illustrated by Suzanne Beedell. So I just thought this was cute. I love these like little old kind of paperbacky books. Let's have a look at when this one came out. This video is going to be like a new age hipster's dream. You want to see what secondhand books I've thrifted? Okay, so this was printed in 1977. So how cool is that? How cool is that? And that's part of the reason I grabbed it, because I was like, this is just so retro. I love this. Herbs properly prepared mean health and beauty, and here you will find over 200 varieties carefully detailed and described with full instructions for their use. So yeah, I just thought this would be like fun to have a look at, you know, what herbs were they using in the 70s for what. And it is illustrated. It's so cute. It's so cute. I just had to get it. Okay, two more. Goddesses in Every Woman, A New Psychology of Women by Jean Shinoda Bolen. A lot of people probably watching this, you may have heard of this book, you may even have it on your shelf. It's one of those books that everybody talks about. I did a course once, like ages ago, on like the goddess within or something. I can't even really remember where it was, what it was called now, but it was this book was used like as part of that course, and I actually put this book like on, here's the manifesting story. I actually had this book on my wish list from like 10 years ago, and then I found it at the book fair for like $1. But this is one of those like classic books that if you're interested in goddesses, then you know this is kind of like it's one that everybody talks about and everybody has if you're into that stuff. So I was like, yep, I need that for my collection as well. And now we come to the final book, Louise L. Hay, The Power Is Within You. Now, I got to tell you that I love vintage Louise Hay. I love vintage Louise Hay more than I love her new stuff. A couple of her books I found in like secondhand shops that were just like, this is good, you know, like this is good stuff. I think Louise Hay is one of those people that, you know, obviously she had like amazing success with her books and creating Hay House and all of the stuff that she was producing all of the time. But I think sometimes with people like that, at least, you know, maybe this is just some of my like judgment around it. Sometimes we look at people that are kind of, you know, in that real like mainstream spirituality arena, and we think, you know, like, oh, it's just going to be really surface stuff, you know, like it's affirmations and it's like gratitude and like whatever. But her stuff, like especially the older stuff, it's really, really good. Like it's really good. I actually started reading this and I was like, this is good stuff. So this is 1991 and it's published by Specialist Publications, because this was obviously before she had her own publishing house, right? So we have like sections in here. Part 1, Becoming Conscious. Chapter 1, The Power Within. You know, I don't know. I'm trying to find like, when we expand our thinking and beliefs, our love flows freely. When we contract, we shut ourselves off. The power within. Who are you? Why are you here? What are your beliefs about life? For thousands of years, finding the answers to these questions has meant going within. But what does that mean? She breaks it down. Responsibility versus blame. Yeah, I started just kind of reading it, following your inner voice. And I was like, you know what? This is good stuff. This is really good stuff. I honestly haven't read like a lot of her new stuff. Uh, but you know, by new stuff, I mean like anything in the last like 20 years. But her old stuff, there's another book that I read called Life. It's just called Life. Uh, and I think I'm actually still like halfway through that. It's one of those books that I started reading when I was on holiday or something. But that was really good too. It was like, this is good. This is really good. Anyway, I feel like I've harped on about that. But yeah, vintage Louise Hay, I am all here for it. Every time I see a Louise Hay book now in the secondhand shop that's like one of her oldies, I'm grabbing that because that is good stuff. Okay, gorgeous souls, I hope you enjoyed that. If you are still here and you're still watching, thanks for coming with me on that little adventure through my secondhand spiritual book haul. Please let me know if you've read any of these. I would love to hear from you in the comments. If there's any that you're like, oh, that looks good, tell me which one you're gonna like go and find and check out. And also let me know in the comments too, like what are some of your favorite like old school spiritual books, because I would love to check them out as well. So as I said before, if you want to get your book written, published, out into the world, I am now offering author mentoring. This, I had no intention of like sharing about this. I just wanted to make a book haul video, but you know, just in case you're watching and you're like me and you love books and you want to write one and get it out into the world, check out my author mentoring offers in the link below, because I would love to be your biggest cheerleader. And as much as I've cheerleaded quite a lot of these books, even though I haven't even read them, well, I've just cheerleaded Louise Hay like big time. I would love to be your cheerleader as well, and I would love to help you on your author journey. But yeah, also I would love to know what books you're reading, because that would light me up. Okay, gorgeous souls, I'm here if you need anything. All the links to connect with me are below, and I'm sending you so much love.